tough crowd, Al.
Shannon Poe, Walt's daughter, has a couple of things she'd like to say, and so we're going to give her the mic for a minute and get rid of that.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much for being here today. I want to take a minute to introduce some people that are here with me that are special and that have known my dad. So first of all, for my kids, Ethan Bador, who's 12, if you could stand. Ava Bador, 10. And Ryan Bador, who's 8. So we live in Arkansas now. After graduating from Michigan State, I headed down south and haven't come back. And the weather this weekend sort of affirms made the right decision. My kids think this is a lot of snow. We had a snow day in Arkansas about a week ago for 1/8-inch dusting. So this is pretty extreme for my kids. Also, Bob and Kathy Fender. Bob is my mom's brother. Bob and Kathy and their children, Amanda and Leah and Zach, have spent more holidays with my dad than anyone in here. So they also know more about Dad from a holiday standpoint in terms of when he took naps and what he liked with his turkey. And then Joe, who came in from Arkansas to be with us as well. So this is a table that you all might not know, but I wanted to introduce them. And then Ellen Poe is here. So for the stories about Art Poe, Ellen and AJ and David Poe are in the back as well. So if you knew my dad, you knew Art, so please go and say hi to Ellen. All this to say is that the family is a lot smaller than it was growing up. So you in the room are a part of the family. And even if it's not bloodlines, we're so thankful for you to be here today. So thank you. I wrote down a couple of things that I thought would be important to share. So first of all, my dad never wanted a traditional funeral. So thank you for being here today to celebrate in a way that is as authentic and represents my dad as what could be. So thank you for giving up your time to be here with us. We very much appreciate it. My dad was born June 18th in 36, and he was one of 5 children from Pontiac, 4 brothers and 1 sister. His dad was a lobbyist for the auto industry, but died an untimely death in the mid-40s, leaving Vera, his mom, to raise 5 kids without a job at first. So she began working as a housekeeper in local hotels. So mostly the stories that my dad told of his childhood were of struggle and poverty and really survival of his family. As time went on, Matt and I were never really sure where the stories became so embellished, where the truth and exaggeration line fell. So I'm not really sure if they had to crack an egg over mashed potatoes to pretend like it was gravy, or if you really did have to walk to school uphill both ways with no shoes, but he also claimed that till the end of time as well. But his early childhood was rough, and the family did struggle, and it left an imprint on him that really exceeded, if you were to look at statistical rankings, what he should and would have done. He was an incredible athlete, as you've heard today, and he earned a scholarship to Hillsdale College after graduating high school. He played for the most winningest football coach in the division, Muddy Waters, and he was, and his fellow teammates, inducted into Hillsdale Football Hall of Fame, while Coach Muddy Waters was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2000. My dad told me that he loved having a football scholarship because it was the only time he knew he would be fed. It was during the off months that he was hungry and lived off of pancakes and a small grocery budget just to get by, and he could never wait for the season to start up again. I remember him saying how all of his coaches took care of him and would bring him food and give him extra money, and Muddy was no exception. So his coaches and his sports were a formidable part of his upbringing. And the only story I remember of his siblings, he talked a lot about playing, and with the siblings, it was a pretty chaotic environment, and Ellen, you might remember this. told the story of being chased around the kitchen table with a knife because I think he borrowed Art's shirt for a date at some point. So his family, so living at home with 4 brothers and a sister was a lot different than Coach. But the story of athletics and the coaches forged a really strong imprint on him that he chose a career in education. And I do believe that he paid forward these same attributes to students at West Newfield High School over his 34-plus career. Upon graduation from Hillsdale, my dad was offered a position with the pro football team, the Detroit Lions. He turned it down because teachers at that time made $500 more a year. So when athlete pay reached millions per year in the 80s, I learned a lot of new 4-letter words while he yelled at the TV and ESPN. So football was a big part of my dad's life, and I never understood why he was so supportive of me becoming and staying a cheerleader, because I thought he would have wanted me to participate in something sportier. I figured out he was supportive because he was able to watch football teams all over Michigan if I stayed in cheerleading. Turns out he didn't really like the sport of cheerleading the way that I thought he did. Walt's first marriage was to Carol Poe, where they had Matthew in '73. Carol died an untimely death from breast cancer. My mom, Mary, was Matt's kindergarten teacher, which is how my mom and Walt met. They were both working in the West Wingfield School District. My mom was recently divorced with me, and the two of them started dating and eventually married. About 2 years into their marriage, Walt legally adopted me. I was 6 at the time, and I was so happy to become a Pope. I remember going to the courtroom, and the levity, I didn't understand the levity, but as a parent now, the gravity of the decision for Walt to step in as my dad is something that I will forever be grateful to. I called him Dad. He was my dad. And the most remarkable thing is he didn't have to be, but he chose to. He was with me at all the events, graduation, marriage, moving, and all of the unglamorous things that go along with parenting too, like paying for college, helping me get my first car. So words of gratitude don't scratch the surface as to how much his selflessness meant to me and still means to me today. Walt taught me love in an unconditional manner and through an unconventional channel, which I think changed both of our lives for the better. And for many of you in the room today, I'm sure you can agree that his ability to love his friends and his family and his students was everlasting. He showed this to each of us time and time again. It's hard to articulate what it's like to have your dad and mom work in the same school district as you, from elementary school to high school. I'm glad you two are standing up here with me, because now these are the stories about us. So Jamie Hack is up here, and Jocelyn Zajac. Seemed like everyone knew me when I went to school, but everyone knew my dad. And one of the things that my parents like to do is travel in the motorhome during breaks. And on one of these trips, we were at Disney in California, and a person from across the entrance yelled, "Mr. Poe!" And this stuff happened all the time. Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, rest area stops on the way to Florida. Somebody always knew my dad. Living with my dad was like living with a local legend. So in high school, we decided to use this to our fullest advantage, including as a freshman who were not allowed off of campus. I would take my dad's teacher sticker out of the car. So, yes, you did. So, I know. All right. Putting it as my car as a freshman so my friends and I could drive off of campus at lunch, even though we weren't allowed to do that. It also meant that if I skipped a couple of classes, I just told Carol Hack that my dad needed me and I had to take care of some stuff. My friends and I had a great time. With my dad as a teacher, we took full advantage of the fact that we had straight A's, but like to have a little fun too. And with all the canned Miller Lite and pack of Century 100s laying around, there was always something new to learn. So some of the stories can't be told with a microphone, but for my close friends, Deborah, Jeanette, Jamie, Jocelyn, Jenny Dare, when we get together at our annual year baseball game, the stories of my dad are a thread in the fabric for us as well. So in closing, when I think about my dad and the life he helped give to me, I'm so overwhelmed at the love that he showed. I saw it when my mom was fighting and losing her battle with cancer, and he was by her side the entire time. I also saw it when he started dating Marlon and his love for her, and also as she was fighting for her battle with cancer too. My dad was as committed as they come, and even though we all had to pretend at times that his jokes were funny, even when they weren't, he was a man to stand by his commitments through and through until the end. He was full of love and laughter, and we're so pleased to see everybody here today to celebrate his. So I would like to have a toast for my dad, so if you have a glass, please raise it. Thank you. So, to Walt.